So you spent over $100,000 on health hacks. What did you learn throughout that journey?
I had never gone through a serious health problem. Like my whole life, I was totally fine, never had any issues. Dude, one day I got like so sick. I went to a doctor doesn't know what I have. Then I go to a different doctor doesn't know what I have. And eventually I go to this doctor, I'll never forget this guy's title, his diseases of unknown origin. You know? At some point I got up to like 63 pills.
Yeah.
And so I was at 100 million, right? Which was where we met.
Yeah.
And Gary was at the Miami one. And he's like, hey, you should check out this thing called BP157. It's a specific peptide. And he just gave me that little tidbit of information, right? But then I really dove into peptides and have access to the best doctors in the world. And my doctor in January, I tell him like, hey, I'm taking these digestive enzymes. I started taking these peptides. Here's why I take them. And he's like, well, Dan, I've never heard about any of these things that you're doing, but if it's working for you, you should definitely keep doing it.
Welcome back to the Digital Social Hour. I'm your host, Sean Kelly. I'm with my co-host, Wayne Lewis.
What up, what up?
And our guest today, Dan Novias. How's it going?
What's up, guys? Thanks for having me.
Dan,
Absolutely.
man.
Yeah.
It's in the building.
Nice to meet you guys.
So we met at a mastermind
We did.
3-4 years ago.
Yeah.
We bonded over getting sim hacked together.
Bond
Yes.
over sim hacks.
Yeah, I mean, once you get sim hacked, it does create a special bond, with other sim hacked people.
Trauma bond.
His was worse. He
it's
lost
a
money.
trauma.
Wow.
And then it's happened twice. Well, it happened twice back in the day, and then so now it's like you protect your phone number and but yeah, we learned a lot in the first lesson, around it. It was actually a crazy story because at the time, we knew that was potentially going to happen.
Right.
So we were cautious about it. But these guys are so clever, and it was kind of before there was a guy that got hit sim hack for like 25 million at the time. But they went through this like flow through Gemini, and it was a very specific flow that you didn't need to go through a two-factor.
Right.
And so the guys were able to liquidate the account, and it was like it's like 40K or something like that, and I was like, it's impossible that they were able to go through this two-factor because it wasn't tied to a phone number, but they did sim hack me to get into the account in the first place. And so then basically I get a call from the CTO of Gemini at the time, and they're like, hey, this only happened to 6 people in the entire platform. Please don't talk to anyone about it or whatever. And this is like 6 years ago. So
please don't talk to anyone about it.
Yeah. But they covered it. So
they
did a solid. So,
They
Gemini
just paid you guys off?
They did it because it was like a flow in their system, and it's still like the sim hack sucked. Obviously, dealing with that, and we've taken a lot of other precautions now on that, but they did cover it because it was such a unique flow, and it was like not our issue.
Wasn't your fault.
Yeah, making an announcement like that, you can kill a whole company.
They're public, right? So the stock would be.
Yeah. I mean, and again, this happened like 5 or 6 years ago. They hadn't even just starting.
So talk to me about Mode. That's your phone company, right?
Yeah.
Yes. So, background is, we created this software that, we started out as an app, and we basically take everything someone does on a given day and reward them for it. And we had this whole thesis that, people spend 40 hours a week on their phone.
It's pretty big, too.
Looks like an iPhone almost.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a 6.5-inch screen, 128 gig. And we built the software that basically, rewards you for everything you do. Thus far, we've been able to help consumers save and earn about $150 million, right? And, the underlying thesis is that, your attention is, if you're spending an entire work week on this device, you can create a lot of value. Today, there's about 1 billion iPhones in the world, and there's 7 billion smartphones in the world. So there's 6 billion people using Android, most of which tend to be more budget conscious.
Right.
And so basically, we call it Earn Phone. I see it as kind of like, the evolution of what happened from TV to smart TV, right? And so we see like the evolution from smartphone to a new category called Earn Phone. It's not for every person, right? Not every person to do that, but we can create a lot of value back to these people, and they get rewards and earn from everything that they
So how do they gain rewards, and is the money, are they actually getting real money, or is it paid in crypto?
No, it's paid in real money, so it's like a real revenue generating business. We started out as an app. We have over 2.9 million reviews in the Play Store. Over 40 million people have around the world have downloaded this product.
40 million people?
Yeah, over.
What's
40
your biggest
million.
countries?
US is our most revenue.
Okay.
We have a lot of people interested in international. Ironically, like I just got a ping from my team like 3 hours ago, and last night someone tweeted at like 9 p.m. from Argentina. It's like, hey, I just got paid to play music, and the tweet caught, and it's at like 3 million retweets or something. So we just had this surge of Argentinians. Like there's like 60,000 people in the last 12 hours that downloaded the product. And so it just kind of shows like there's and you think about what's happening in Argentina right now with inflation. I mean, and the thing is like we provide the services that people are going to do anyway. So we give them free music, free streaming. We work with a lot of the biggest game companies, so like a Candy Crush or whatever. And what we do to align incentive in the model is these companies, whether it's a financial service company, whether it's a game, they want to create alignment with the user. They want to create habits. So instead of us paying the user just to download an app, we reward the user per minute they play that game. And so that basically creates great retention. And then you could give higher rewards when they do an in-app purchase or something. For like a bank account, like we were one of the biggest affiliates last year for a lot of crypto exchanges. Ironically, Voyager was one of my largest customers. And so we're dealing with that whole suit, but we're going to get some money back. But we work with a lot of the neobanks, and the way that we'll align value with the customer is like, hey, you have an account at Chase or whatever, but if you open an account at Stash or Chime or whatever, they may be willing to pay $200 if you deposit $50 in that account. And so then we'll share that revenue back with the user. And so basically it's about creating alignment on every facet of your life.
So what is the cost per minute that they're playing? Like what do you guys playing in per minute that they play?
It varies on the game. I mean, every game has a different rate, so we pay a different rate. But that also, it's like the higher you pay, the more users you're going to get as an advertiser.
Oh, that's crazy.
And then the lower it is, and then the users just choose. The thing is, like, there's so many opportunities for the user, but if you think about your time and attention, your attention is the most important thing you have. I mean, there's 164 hours a week. Average lifetime is like 32,000 days. If you do the math of the amount of time that you spend on your phone at 40 hours a week, the average person today, especially like even it's getting worse in the younger generation, it's 16 years of waking hours. So if you never slept for 16 hours, that's how much time you're spending in front of that phone. And it's only going up, right? So fundamentally, like kind of the business model that we're going after is like, while we made this phone, and this phone is, at Best Buy and Walmart, I'm not really in the business to be a hardware business. We're a software company, and we just created what we call Earn OS on top of this. And now what we're doing is we're licensing this tech similar to what Roku does. So if you think about the Roku business model that's created, a multi, $10+ billion company, is they'll work with like a TCL or RCA, like a TV manufacturer. They'll license the Roku tech to the TV maker, and where that money is being made, and why you see companies that had TVs that were $1,000, now they're $99. Now there's a new company from the co-founder of Pluto that just got like 100,000 subs for a free TV. It's because all the money on those TVs, these 50-inch TVs, is made from the advertising and the data analytics, right? So what we're doing is essentially allowing other phone companies and carriers to launch their own Earn phones. So it's like, think about Samsung Earn phone, Blue Earn phone. And so that's kind of like what I see as a new category in the space. And I think it's a $1 trillion market because it's much broader.
And you can cross over into people watching shows for like Earn and watch TV. We
do that already. We reward them to watch video. We reward them to charge their phone, unlock their phone.
Bro, that's crazy.
Are you serious?
So if I plug this in, I mean, you can't see it here, but if you plug this in, it'll literally reward you to charge the device. So basically we take every habit that people have. And so what's interesting is like right now it's mostly Android, but I don't know if you guys have seen like what's happening with Apple. So the EU, which sometimes like, as a capitalist, you're like, I don't necessarily like the things that you do because you're like, it hurts business. But in this case, it's like very helpful where they were like, hey, Apple, you have this like umbrella that you're creating, and like it's not a fair market. So now they're having to open up the iPhone or the iOS, and starting next year they have to unlock a lot of components of the iPhone.
Really?
And so then we should, pending once that happens, we should be able to allow iPhone users to turn their iPhones into Earn phones, basically.
Whoa.
So then it unlocks the entire market, and obviously, the iOS market is a much more broad, generally kind of like a tier 1 market in that sense. So we're really excited about it, and because there's 7 billion phones versus 700 million households with TV, it's a 10x the market, and it's $100 billion market.
So they're changing the dynamic and creating more addiction.
Makes sense because people are on their phones so long.
Right.
Yeah.
Why not get paid?
They're going to be on their phones even more now because there's more of an incentive.
Well, at least they're making money now instead of just scrolling.
Yeah, you're giving back. I mean, at the end of the day, if you're facilitating thousands of dollars back in people's pockets, that creates, especially if you think about like, the people that need it most generally are who we focus on now, but we're kind of moving upstream. What we see is like we're kind of moving into now like more middle income households and beyond, especially in the economy that we're in today. Right. We're generally like, people are struggling, there's inflation, there's all these things. And, we basically teach people how to earn and save and earn hacks. And, we have a lot of hacks and, that we've been a part of. And
that is sick.
I want to get into
that's
into health hacks now.
Yeah,
health hacks.
So you spent over $100,000 on health hacks. What did you learn throughout that journey?
Yeah, so I mean, I'll give you background. So and I think that's why we related when we first met. Just like you, I've been doing entrepreneurial things ever since I was a teenager. Right, I was always a kid that was kind of like hustling, and had created a bunch of companies. Was very focused on that up until I was about 22. And I had never gone through a serious health problem. Like my whole life, I was totally fine, never had any issues. We just focused on like kind of like the next, thing, like entrepreneurial thing. Dude, one day I got like so sick to the point that I had to call my parents to come pick me up because I was living in Chicago at the time. And I couldn't even like take care of myself. Wow. And then so I went to a doctor doesn't know what I have. Then I go to a different doctor doesn't know what I have. Then I go to a different doctor. And eventually I go to this doctor that's like, I'll never forget this guy's title. His thesis of diseases of unknown origin. And I was like, well, that sucks. Like, I was like, that's not good. Yeah. He kind of looks at it and this is after like 2 weeks, I've lost 30 pounds. I have crazy headaches. I can't sleep, like, even though I'm exhausted. And the guy's like, listen, I think that you have meningitis. The only way for us to text is we have to like check and do like a spinal tap, but it's not bacterial because, you likely would have passed away. And so, a couple days later, fever breaks, and it took me like 2 months to feel normal again. But 6 months later, I started having all these like gut issues, right? Like serious gut issues, and it was from all the antibiotics. They were just giving me whatever because they didn't know what I had.
Right.
And basically, I that whole thing created this autoimmune issue where I got like ulcerative colitis, right?
Wow.
And so, I'm 22, 23 now, and then it was the first time I'm like, wow, first I have to take this medication. And then I would stop taking medication and it would get worse each time. And I have to take more medication. And so it turned into this thing. And then it started impacting like my like subconscious and like starting having vertigo symptoms. And it was this mess. So
this was like all at the same time.
This is like year? 22, 23. Yeah. Yeah. Same year, all 6 months. It was a really tough time. Like, and then you also realize I'm really thankful for it now because it created so much new perspective of my, of how I was seeing the world. But ultimately, what I realized is like, man, like, this is a thing that's happening. I mean, it's only getting worse. Like the next 10 years, it has gotten even worse. Like, now that I'm 34. But what I basically was like, is like, I'm going to figure out a way to, at least revert or subside these systems. Right. And I'm not just going to listen what these white coats are telling me what I should do. And there's a time and place for that. And so I started just diving into so much random things like, and I was down for anything, whether it's stem cells and Panama, whether it was like fecal transplant, whether it's ice baths. Like I found out about Wim Hof. I was in a small group of 12 people in Australia. It was kind of around the time that the Device documentary came out, and like found out about the whole Wim Hof ice method and learned from Wim there, right? And it was a super early because I was always looking for the next thing. And some of these things I've had really good, opportunities with, and essentially opened up new doors. And so, going to these masterminds and stuff like that. So over time, I basically kind of found, okay, this works for me, this works for me, this works for me. And then I had a really big breakthrough. Typically, it's through these masterminds. But, we're actually, I think you've had Gary Brecka on the show, right?
Yeah.
And so I was at 100 million, right? Which was where we met.
Yeah.
And Gary was at the Miami one and mentioned, and I told him kind of like this story. And he's like, hey, you should check out this thing called BP 157. It's a, specific peptide. And he just gave me that little tidbit of information, right? But then I really dove into peptides. Right. And I noticed, okay, so this BP 157, a lot of people use it for like muscle tears, and you can inject it. And it's a research grade peptide. It's not something necessarily a doctor can has to prescribe to you.
Right.
And then I dove in deeper, and I found out this company that's called like Peptide Sciences. And then this whole component, I found these longevity experts, and they're like, hey, there's this gut inflammation like peptide mix, right? It literally, the box says this is for research purposes only. Do not take it as a human. But I'm like, I really don't want to take the prednisone and steroids and all these various things. I mean, that is like, it'll fix you for now, but it's like, if you think about like a tree that's dying, you don't go to the branches of the tree to fix the tree.
Right.
You go to the roots of the tree to see what's happening. And so that's everything between diet, supplementation, whatever. So I ordered the things like $300 a bottle. I'm like, okay. The guy that after Gary gave me that little nugget, I went to this other guy and he's like, look, I have a similar issue. I take this thing. I can't prescribe it to you, but you can buy it direct. You have to pay these guys in the most weird way, dude. Like you have to pay either crypto or you have to send it and all that. I don't want to like, I don't want this. Actually, I would pay any amount of money for this peptide. So actually I don't like, we should edit out the name of it because I don't want to have an issue. Fine. But anyways, buy this peptide science thing. I go on my honeymoon with my wife at times. This is last year. And man, like it makes this massive difference in my life. Like it's like this combo mix of these 3 different peptides. And I go to the Mayo Clinic for my executive physicals, right? Like I have access to the best doctors in the world. I'm really proactive about that stuff. And my doctor in January, I tell him like my combo mix of like, hey, I'm taking these digestive enzymes. I start taking these peptides. Here's why I take them. And he's like, well, Dan, I've never heard about any of these things that you're doing, but if it's working for you, you should definitely keep doing it, right? And it just changed my life, man, because you have no idea how bad it is. Like every autoimmune disease that people have, but I can relate to it, if it controls your life. If you can't control when you have to go to the bathroom, if you have like extreme cramps, you have to get surgery, like it's an epidemic because of all the glyphosate in our food, all the like chemicals, birth rates are on the decline. But I think that, with peptides and also, a host of other things, like I'm not saying peptides is the one and all savior, but every entrepreneur that I know, every founder, every high performer I know is starting to experiment with peptides. Wow. And oftentimes they are these research grade peptides. It's like not for human consumption, but it's because there is it's kind of like a gray area, right? Essentially, like they're kind of operating in this zone where it's like, because it's research grade, you're allowed to buy it as an end consumer, but you're not allowed to prescribe it because the lobbies here with the FDA and all those things are so strong. But anyways, like these life hacks and all that stuff. And at the end of the day, like, I pay any amount of money for that because living a normal life is like.
Yeah. Do you inject the peptide or is it a pill?
No, because my issues in the gut, you take it via pill, right? So that was what I found out about BUP 157 is like, you can actually take the pill form. That's way better. But when I found out about like, these other compounds like tributyrine, that's like another thing that's in it. And this one formula, man, it just like literally changed my life. And now it's like.
So did you ever find out what you had?
Back in the day, it was meningitis.
So it was meningitis.
I think.
Oh, okay.
All right. I would say it's a 95% chance. I have no idea.
Did you have to do a spinal tap?
No, he told me. No, he told me. He's like, dude, he's like, look, we can. It's extremely painful. I don't know what.
How does that work? They put a needle in your spine?
I think so.
Jesus.
Yeah.
That's my understanding.
Yeah. They take some blood from.
Wait, we got to try out these peptides.
Yeah. I mean, so literally, I create these little combo things. These are like the pill. This is my 10 years of experiments bag, right? So, and those aren't drugs.
So this is for your gut health?
You take, how many of these a day?
I just do 1 pack a day now, but I've got
one pack.
Yeah, just pop all those in once, and that's after.
Like 30
dude,
bro, this goes in one. This is one take.
Dude, that's light. That's me on like literally.
No way.
So here's the deal. Like,
so you drink some water and you take one.
Yeah, I would rip it now, but I like to do it with food, because it just kind of sits there. But I mean, that's actually pretty light because at my max I could do like 50 of these. You know what I mean?
These are all natural, right?
Yeah, they're all natural. I mean, but it's like this is kind of like this is what has worked over.
Oh, this is 17 pills.
Can you can you text me these? I want to start buying these.
Yeah.
So you take 17 pills every day.
Yeah.
I take 30, but I feel like these are way better.
What do you take? So I was up my max. I was doing AM and PM. Like my housekeeper, I have all these. Every single pill box has a number, and she makes those for me because I customize it and I would try new things and whatever. At some point, I got up to like 63 pills, and the only other person was
Bro,
Dave.
63 pills?
Yeah.
You know what I'm talking about, Dave Asbury.
Oh.
He's like the biohacker. He's like the original entrepreneur. And I met him one time at Summit. And like this guy takes like 100 pills a day, and I was like, and I was like, really into all that. But then I was like, more isn't necessarily better because I was taking so many pills that actually I was having like sometimes if I didn't eat enough, I was having like nausea because it would get stuck here. But I could rip like 60 of them at once. Like
there's
one
a limit.
gulp.
So you're taking 30 pills a day.
I'm taking 30, but they're like vitamins and stuff. I feel like this is more more efficient.
Yeah, because basically it's kind of like what I find for me, and like every person's
So
different.
what's in these actually?
So basically, it's like, look, the orange ones are like a Citrusel, which is super basic, and you can get it at CVS. But we're not getting enough fiber in our diet. And there's two types of fiber. There's typically, there's the Metamucil, which is like a wheat-based fiber, but that's actually very inflammatory for a lot of people. And then there's like orange-based. It's like based on the orange peel, and that's what Citrusel. So for me, that works really well, and I've like experimented with both of them. Then I have like the peptide. The peptide's only one pill. Right? When the guy was like, look, he takes this for 2 weeks. If after 2 weeks you don't notice anything, it's not going to work for you. And then but for me, it worked. And then once I got kind of like to a steady state, I brought it down to one.
So what do peptides actually do? What is a peptide's job?
So you have peptides in your body, right? And so essentially, like it's there is something happening in your body that is potentially creating a deficiency. What you're essentially doing with the peptide is essentially just bringing your deficiency back up to a normal level. Now, you may not have the same issue.
Yours were low.
For that area, yes, for me. And it's like, and then so it's kind of rehabilitating that area, right? So peptides are naturally occurring in the body, right? And so, we're essentially just, putting that back into your body. So it's like,
should we all be taking peptides?
If you're deficient, right?
I mean, I think if you're deficient, look, I'm not a health. I'm a tech entrepreneur. I am a doctor. I'm not, but I always man, you read these stories, man, and like there's been some difficult times in my life that like you're dealing with like such like because everyone's fine and like you're thinking about like how can I create more profit, how can I grow, how can I do this. But then when your health is off, whether you're sickness, whether it's an autoimmune, you feel that you can't control anything. And that also then starts impacting your mental state. And then, I saw the previous guest talking about like, gratitude and all these things. And it's like, those things I naturally gravitated to, but it's all started at this like epitome of like going through a health scare, a severe health scare. So I think that I like to take an entrepreneurial approach, but when you read these stories, there's a lot of people that don't have access to this information. You go to the Midwest, like I grew up in Indiana, it's like, and nothing wrong about growing up in this, but it's just like you have lack of information and, doctors, you should seek the best, but they're not always like, trained, and their job is also to mitigate risk. They're not going to say. So I'm a huge fan of like functional medicine and like guys like Dr. Mark Hyman and of that. So I always try and like find a balance in between that.
So how important through these tough times, or how important was it to have a support system? Was your wife there the whole time, or?
So my wife and I only got married in June, but yeah, we've been dating for 6 years.
You guys have been dating for 6 years. How was that being married? Like how is it?
Marriage great. Yeah, I mean, that was actually another little hack that we were going to talk about. But
yeah, he hacked dating, bro.
Pre AI, the whole deal. Pre
He
AI.
made an algorithm for dating apps.
So
Wow.
So basically, and it ultimately led me to my wife. So that's why I think. Like,
So you met her on a dating app?
I did. Yeah, we met on Tinder.
Which one?
Tinder. But here's the
Wow.
thing. Okay, I'll give you the background on this of what ultimately happened. Okay, so and now there's so much more opportunity around this because AI is actually good.
Yeah.
Like, right? Like it can actually talk like a real person. I'll tell you what I did because I didn't have that model. So this is like
So you met your wife using AI.
well, not AI. I won't
crazy.
say we were using.
Listen up.
We weren't
Listen
using it. So it wasn't AI. It wasn't like what we like the AI now, but
Right.
it was automation. And I wish I had AI. It was just it was basically a marketing funnel. That's what I would call it in my head, right? And I funneled
Well, this is unique.
So so here's what we did. This is like 10 years ago, and I noticed these dating apps kind of starting to pop up.
Yeah.
And I'm like, okay, I mean, everything in this is an algorithm of some sort. So the way that I noticed that Tinder worked is basically like, if you created a new account and you had a really well optimized profile, like good pictures, it would kind of like find this coefficient associated to you and kind of match you with people that are similar to you at that time, right? And so if you're getting a lot of no swipes, it kind of matches you someone that's also kind of getting that level to kind of find the right level, was my understanding. So basically what I did is I templatized all these photos as like Tinder top pick of the week, and I created all these various different templates into my photos as if Tinder was recommending that person in their algorithm that I was like their match of the week of what I could do, right?
What is this? This is science.
Okay, so that was the first part. So then I was like, wow, that like worked because my it went up and tied it to the account. The next thing I did was like, okay, it's a numbers game, right? And so we just tapped into their private API and just swiped right on everything, and then you got all these, these matches.
Into their private API.
Well, at the time they weren't like billion-dollar companies, so it was way easier to do, you know. But yeah, we did a lot of those like little hacks when we were running just random social apps. Like, you tap into Instagram's private API, get anyone on the Explore page. Like, I got a cease and desist from Facebook, like from that. Right. But we were making like $400,000 or $500K a month, like just like getting people on the popular page. But the Tinder thing, I didn't make as much money on, but it did change my life on this thing. And then I saw, well, from a personal perspective, here's what happened. Right. And anyways, so then I found this really solid conversation opener that no one else did, and that it always led to the same outcome. Wow. Right? And basically it was a group of emojis that I would send out to this person. It was kind of like, sushi, like a guy, girl, sushi, dance, music, present box, question mark equals question mark, all emoji. That's the only thing that you send. Someone would read that, and that means kind of like me plus you, date, food, drinks, date, present box. The person would then see, it's so unique, no one had did it. So then essentially the next thing was like, they would either reply an emoji or ask a question. Then I would have a back one that just said like, kind of like, phone number, question mark. They would get a phone number. If they got the phone number and then I liked the profile, meaning like I saw that this person could be someone I could go with, I would hit them up on Wednesdays. On Wednesdays, you can set it up, or I'd hit them up on Tuesdays and Wednesdays, because then you can set up a Thursday night drinks and there's no commitment, you know what I mean? If it doesn't work out. And so basically I had it down to a funnel. And once I would get the phone number, you send that whole thing. So that's basically how I get the funnel of the conversation going. And I just automated the whole thing while getting that. And you can go to any place and essentially already have that, because we can then basically change the location. At the time, Tinder didn't have the ability to do that. So that's what we did on Tinder. On like Raya, so Raya like 7 years ago, it was, today it's still pretty selective.
What's Raya?
So Raya,
it's for influencers, right?
It's like a celebrity dating app, but it used to be really tight. Like you can go to like a Billions episode, like season 1, and they're mentioning this Raya thing. And maybe the year or two before, it was basically like you had Raya in New York, and then you had Raya in LA. And then basically it was like there was like 10% everywhere else, right? It was like and it was all celebrities, models, like entrepreneurs that maybe knew the founders.
Real people.
It was real people, but it was such a small network, right? Yeah. And now they've turned it into business. Like they're actually making money, they're doing stuff. So what I was like, and I had a bunch of friends apply before I tried to apply, because and none of them got in. And I was like, remember thinking like, I only had one friend that was in it, and I was like, I don't want to take the risk, get my profile and not get in there or whatever. So I was like, I could figure this out. And this is also 6 years ago. Times were different. Yeah. But you could we had like a verified Instagram account. And at the time, you could change the username of that account. So I found a celebrity that didn't have an Instagram, changed the username to that person, and applied as like a 65, 70-year-old person, right? And that I knew was never going to have like go on Raya, because like happily married, they're 75, whatever. Famous person though, got right in within 10 seconds. So I get in, and now it's this person with a name that's not even me, but my photo, and it says I'm like 77, like, you know what I mean? And so I'm then on these places, but being 77 and looking like me, people were just like, this guy must have the health formula of the century. So it actually became its own conversation starter. Wow. Because people were like, are you actually 77? And I'm like, no, I think it's a bug in the system. But in my head, I'm like, yeah, I fucking hacked it here, and that's how I'm in it. Yeah, so I matched with like A-list sellers, some of the biggest pop singers, like all that stuff. So at the end of the day, why was I doing this? It just opened up the door to new opportunities, right? And I wasn't trying to get in a relationship. Like I was single, and I wasn't even thinking about that. But for me, and ultimately what led me to my wife, is that we did meet on Tinder. And we just had a casual relationship for a year and a half. And, and it was like, like we were friends, we would hook up and stuff like that. But it was ultimate transparency in our relationship. Yeah. And after about a year and a half, like we had this very deep conversation. And what brought us together was really our grandparents. Like it was like, and I was like, because I would just see her more as just fun, right? Which we had so much fun. But then you're like, wow, this person's so deep, and I didn't want to miss out on that. So we started dating, and like 5 years later, we got married in June. Dude, so all started, but we did all the opposite things, hook up the first night. A year and a half of like,
Wait, so y'all hooked up the first night?
First night,
all the way, or just
got it popping? No, he said they got it popping the first night.
Wow.
Yeah, it was just so strange. It was like, and even in our wedding vows, like we got married in last June, and like people were like came to my wedding. It was a pretty small wedding because it was still kind of on the brink of like, COVID and, not. And, but all my friends were like, that was the most transparent transparency vow, because we literally said that because my wife lived with me and 5 entrepreneurial friends in a house that we have in Chicago. It was called the Fun House. That's like 7,000 square foot, all entrepreneurs. And, it kind of was like, is that a commune? It's like, no, it's not a commune. Like, we just live this way. So we just live by our own ways of being, right? And I think that that's like why me and my wife like have always been so close to one another. And is because like, the relationship starts with a basis of trust, transparency. We weren't pretending to be something that we weren't. And we live life by our own kind of like
she
rules
loves you
and
for who
norms.
you truly are.
Yeah. And I the same, but it's like we have norms in a relationship. I think that, so you asked me like, how is it being married? Things haven't really changed because we try and be proactive about that. Like entrepreneurs have board meetings with their, with their team or team meetings. Very rarely do people have like, hey, what's your like monthly spousal check-in? It's almost like a board meeting, right? And you talk and you evolve and you do all these things. But we like to live life in that way, right? And that was kind of like where it all started. But it all started on Tinder with the bot, man.
That's dope.
Yeah, but now that you have AI, like people can crush that because they can have the conversation, man. Saves so much time. It's like dating now is like so amazing. If you can use GTP4 and whatever's happening, like your life would change.
Right. Yeah, you could fully automate the whole convo. You wouldn't even have to talk to them until you meet them in person.
Yeah, exactly.
Because it can arrange the date for you at this point.
Exactly, man. Yeah, we had to do it the old-fashioned way.
Why do you think a lot of people struggle dating entrepreneurs?
I don't know, man. I've never been on the other side. I've never really dated an entrepreneur as being an entrepreneur. I think it's difficult because like, I think like why entrepreneurs are sometimes difficult to date is that, at least I know for myself, so I'm speaking for myself. People think about work as like a thing they have to do, right? I try and relax and, I like relaxing, but like this is like what I love doing. It's like my creation. It's like my art. Like I love it more than anything. Sure, there are parts of it I hate. There are things I just do not like to do, but I try and do those as least as possible. But whether it's the stress or it's the creation, like I just love it, but it's almost like it's like I want to always talk about it. I always want to, and like my wife always says, like, it's like, Dan, like you should really not try not to talk, like, there are other topics that people may want to talk about besides business. And so I think like, people have to kind of relate to that. And that's why I would say maybe it's difficult to date an entrepreneur because of those.
I'm like that too. My girl's always like, do you have to talk about business all the time at dinners
it's like,
and stuff?
But it's not business. It's like, it's just lifestyle.
It's just creation.
Yeah, it's
creation.
a normal thing.
Yeah.
It's hard to turn it off for real.
Yeah, it doesn't feel like work.
Yeah, but I think most people have they kind of struggle with dating entrepreneurs because entrepreneurship is viewed on social media as like this island, this cool place. It's really cool sometimes, but like you said, like it's dark times too, and people struggle with that because they realize like it's a lot of work that goes into it.
People paint a picture that it's all roses, dude.
It's not.
It's look, I wouldn't choose it to do anything else, but at the same time, like, things like this past 12 months, like it's been the most like, on the economy and the whole thing. Like, do you know how many entrepreneurs have had the most treacherous times that ever has an entrepreneur? If I didn't have the health scare, like I don't like, my mental state, it was a difficult as is. And I've already had other things like whether it was like, gratitude practices, other components like health scares, because then you realize, hey, things would be way worse, right? But at the same time, like that shit gets you because this thing is not, it's not that it is me. It is not me. Like my company is not me, but it's like you're a little baby, it's like anything that you could do for this like thing that's growing, you're always going to do the best. So, but if you can keep a level head around it, that's why it's like entrepreneurship game is like a game of a steady state head and like, staying positive, but also staying rational, right? At the same time, because that's the other problem. There's like toxic positivity where you're just like living in delusional state of affairs, and that is like also a big problem.
Yeah, Dan, it's been a blast, man. That was great. Any closing thoughts?
No, man. I thank you for having me here, guys. I really appreciate it. I'm gonna send you guys some mode to earn pounds.
Yeah, I'm gonna you said they're in Walmart and stuff?
Yeah, they're Walmart, Best Buy, or you can just go to modephone.com. But we're also launching. I'm taking this. We're doing kind of mini IPO. We're making all of our users, our millions of user shareholders in our company. And so my goal here in the next like 3 or 4 years is to take this company public with over 1 million investors. Because every person that's a user here, we give them micro shares, and so that's why we're registering now with the SEC to do something called this Reg A Plus that allows us to basically make that a reality, and then make every person in our community an owner in this model.
Wow.
Nice.
That'd be unique for sure.
Yeah.
Wayne, what about you?
Thank you guys for watching. Follow me on Instagram.
Hey. Sean Kelly here. Thanks for tuning in. Digital Social Hour. See you next time.
Thanks, guys.
Peace.